Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Collective number 30. My name is Rich Brubaker. I'm the founder of Collective Responsibility, and it's great to have you here, but it's also great to have Anna with us. So we're going to have a little bit of a live Q&A this time. So thank you, Anna, for joining us. Do me a favor, introduce yourself, why you've joined the Collective for the next 3 months, and then let me know what is the question that you have, or what's the question that's burning on your mind.
Hi, everybody. I'm very glad to be here today. I joined Collective because I am passionate about sustainability and about corporate. I'm currently studying an MBA, and I think it is a key issue in the strategic decisions that companies are doing. The question that I have right now is how important it is for you as part of your strategy to have CSR actions.
So you mean like in the foreign company sense, the Chinese company sense, or just in general in China?
I mean most likely in China, because I'm interested to know what is China's specificities.
It's actually a really important question and a really interesting one. It kind of follows on the last Ask the Collective, where I talked about how CSR had changed over the last 15 years. Now, if I look back 2003 to say 2008, it was the area that I kind of call quid pro quo philanthropy, which was basically, if you give me this much money, you're going to get this number of media hits, you're going to meet this government official, you're going to get. So you give, you get, and it was upfront, very clear. Public relations offices loved it, PR agencies loved it, government relations staff, like this was for them. And as part of that, the reality is that no one really cared about the outcome. So you give $100,000 to a charity, no one really went back to look at what was going on. They didn't, the impact measurement, how it was being spent, it didn't matter. And then, as you may know, in 2008, we had the Sichuan earthquake, but following that, 2009 and 10, we kind of had all the goodwill that came out through the earthquake was destroyed by a Red Cross scandal. There's a woman named Guo Meimei. Now, she didn't work there, and there's a lot of questions whether or not how she got this money and if it was linked to the Red Cross, but basically what happened was she was supposedly affiliated to someone at the Red Cross. She had 2 Maseratis, and people were like, the Red Cross is scandalous, they're wasting their money, blah, 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 and we're never giving money again. At that time, and for the next 3 to 5 years, CSR changed. It became much smaller, you talked about it less, much more internally driven. Now, at the time, what was interesting was that the NGOs really had to change tact. So they had to get a lot more creative in their programming. They also had to get a lot more transparent. So actually what happened was, we all went back, but the quality of CSR programs, and I think the CSR managers and directors that were involved, we started to see where the work, the mission, started to get really interesting, because now people wanted the impact. And so what happened was the value shifted from PR, GR, public relations, government relations, to more of an internal relations, the employee-driven type stuff. After about 5 years of that, though, what we're seeing is kind of where I won't say it's losing importance, but you don't hear about CSR as much anymore, because the PR value isn't there, and because it's more cultural into the DNA. You're seeing a lot less active communication around what they're doing. I also think that you're not seeing as much innovation right now. So what's happening is CSR is changing again. Now, this is in line with the fact that sustainability, not for the green or the save the polar bear type sustainability, is growing, but the issues of water, food safety, like basically consumer product safety, engagement with your communities, your environmental footprint, all these business operational issues are becoming so important that now actually CSR and sustainability are aligning, and what we're seeing is a shift in the core businesses more than anything else. When it comes to, so if you were to look back 10 years, who was the most active CSR, who are the best programs? Right now, they've clearly aligned that more closely to the business model. They've moved away from having a CSR manager per se, and they're moving that into the business. And so the business units are paying it for themselves. So that's a really good shift. When we reach that side, this also gets into where the strategic value is for me long term. And this is where I think I want to answer your question in a more positive way. Is if I look at this and I look out, say, 5-10 years from now, the firms who have gone through this whole genesis, they've gone from being very defensive in CSR, like we're compliant, to we're giving money, to we're building culture, to oh, now we're actually understanding the problems and we're trying to actually create a business model to fix them. I think that these are the companies going forward that will not just survive the next 5-10 years, but will thrive. And I would look at this in terms of education space, healthcare space, food, certainly manufacturing. Like we've had thousands of factories closed down over the last 18 months because they weren't a responsible, and that could be sustainable or to the community citizen, and those factories are slowly being moved out. They didn't have the best labor practices, which means they couldn't get the labor to come into their factory. But those firms that have proactively taken CSR and sustainability as a core strategy, or at least a smart tactic, I think they're able to attract labor, they're able to inspire them if they're like an office environment, or they're able to attract them into the factory. They're able to keep those factories open because they understand the community, they're engaged with their stakeholders, they're making investments in environmental technologies, energy savings, whatever it may be. And then finally, they're building products and services to the market that are delivering solutions that are solving human needs. And when you're doing that, I don't think there's anywhere that you can go but up from here, especially now. Like we've seen so much growth and we see so many challenges out these windows right now. The firms that are, organic food now are only gonna grow. Affordable education, only gonna grow. Affordable housing, only gonna grow. Any of these things that you can do to align the challenges of society with your business model in a responsible manner, that's a great business to be in. So how important is it? I think that 10 years ago, it wasn't that important. I think that you could just get away with not doing anything. But once the earthquake happened, then people had basic expectations that you would donate something to society. But I think the next 10, 15, 20 years, as governments struggle to sign treaties around, say, carbon or other issues, they're gonna look to business to solve these problems. And so if you have a core of CSR and a core of sustainability to leverage on, you're going to thrive through that time. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I did.
Great. Any follow-up?
Yeah, actually I'm glad because you also answered another question that I had, which is whether CSR should be tied to the core business, or should it be, as you said, for the earthquake, there is a general expectation from society that companies that are doing well should help just because they have the power to do so and therefore the responsibility. But I like when you talk about being tied to the core business, because then it links with their strategy and it makes a sense for the company itself. So would you please give an example of a company that really included CSR in their core business?
Sure. So I'll give two, one foreign and one Chinese. So the foreign company I think that historically has done this the best is Interface Flooring, and they make carpet tiles. Disclaimer, they have been a client in the past. They're not now. Come back, Interface. So they've done this in a way that I think is just amazing. It's very inspiring. And they've done a lot of things. But the one program that I really love was called Networks. It's very easy to just give money and walk away and check the box and put it in the CSR report with a smiling kid and say, we did something good. Someone within the organization realized that fishing net nylon matched their own nylon in their own manufacturing process. And they realized that there's a lot of this fishing net kind of building up around the shorelines of many coasts around the world. In particular, and I don't know the exact history, but they ended up in the Philippines working with a small Filipino fishing village. And they basically created a program where they would buy the nets off the fishermen to take them out of the water. They would give those fishermen money. And for many of them, it was the first time they maybe had a bank account. It was the first time they were definitely bringing the waste out, so they were cleaning the ocean. And it was the first time they were being paid for it. So through that program, they actually created a closed loop economy around the value of waste. And then they would bring that nylon back into their process. Now, they could have just gone to that Filipino village, donated $50,000, built a school, done some women's empowerment, done some bottom of the pyramid type, microfinance loan scheme, whatever. And everyone would be like, oh, they're amazing. But this was actually aligning CSR, sustainability, to the business and to the products that they developed. And that was phenomenal for me. And if you go to Interface, and we'll link some of their best programs below, they've just got so many things that they do, because inside the company, it's baked into the core. There's a Chinese, flip that over, there's a Chinese company called InnoHerb. And I was introduced to them about 2 months ago at an event where I was moderating a panel, and their CMO came and spoke about the work they are doing. I actually mentioned it in the last AsktheCollective, where they were basically at the heart of their products. They're kind of like a beauty supply company, like face creams and things like that. They had actually developed a Tibetan plane program where they initially just went out to kind of donate money and build a school or do something CSR related. They realized that in that area that there were raw materials, berries and other things that they could bring back and they could put into their product. So now they're actually, and they call it a social enterprise model. I won't say it is because I haven't done enough work on it, but they've actually, they buy this, they guarantee the price for that product, they bring it into their product, and they just make sure, and they're constantly training up the farmers and the villagers to constantly kind of promote biodiversity, to ensure that they're not doing anything but taking care of the earth and the community around them. And I felt like for a small Chinese company, I mean, they're small, like $150 million small. They're listed, but they're not a massive company. They were doing some really interesting things, and it was something that the CMO, when he was speaking, when he was telling the story, you could tell that it was genuine. This wasn't marketing. They were talking about the journey itself, and it's kind of always, you always ask someone like if they've done a task, and you can kind of figure out if they've actually done it or if they kind of fake it till they make it because of the level of detail. He just had every detail about like the emotions, the operations, the journey to actually find these raw materials, to understand the needs of that village, to bring this to market, and then the benefits back to the company culturally. And so the company, they still take big trips as a team, they still do the CSR thing, but at the end of the day, it's within the business, and I think it's a great example of what a Chinese firm can do as well. And I would say I've seen many of these examples around Asia, and if like I do the Entrepreneurs for Good series on my other channel, and I'm really excited by that. I really like firms that take CSR from a compliance thing to it's the future, and they leverage innovation and entrepreneurship even internally to drive those products, to drive those changes. So yeah, I mean, there's tons of examples, but those are just two.
Sure. Thank you very much. That's great examples.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I appreciate the questions, and thank you for taking the time out to be with us. If you have any questions for me for next week or for future weeks, please feel free to shoot them down below in the comments. And remember, like, share, and comment.